So I'm just going to say a few words about the new thesis. And Aston's up here. I didn't want to put her on the spot too much today. Yeah. So Aston and our internal team at CalFlex have been doing a lot of work on developing the new thesis. And the purpose of the new thesis, in addition to everything that Susan said about the current thesis, is the individual student information management, aggregate data collection and reporting, and all with the eye towards informing program improvement, so that the data is not, it's both for making sure the program is implemented correctly on an individual student level, but giving us a robust data set to kind of know, hopefully with the new thesis, who's even applying to the program, how selections are working, and then sort of how people are going through the program. Currently, we've selected Salesforce as a platform after doing a pretty intensive discovery process of what our needs are with the new thesis and the different platforms that are out there. And Salesforce really looks like it offers a lot of opportunities for different, to fulfill different needs and wants in the future. They really have a lot of plugins to interact with different programs like Qualtrics and web forms and things like that. So it's really exciting as we move forward with that. So we based a lot of what we were looking for in terms of the new thesis on surveys that were sent out a couple of years ago as this project was going underway, and getting feedback from PCs and admin support and some PIs. And the needs that were really identified through that process were, we really want it to be easy to use and to access. So it's ease in logging in, viewing information, and creating reports. The current FileMaker, I think, is a little bit clunky from what I've heard, as far as like you have to write an individual script for everything. Susan has told so much knowledge about it, but I think it may be a little bit more difficult for other people who don't have intimate knowledge of how the system works to just go in and pull information sort of on the spot. So we really wanted to pick a new system that was going to make that a lot easier. We also really want to only collect necessary information with a purpose, so not making busy work for people, but that all the data that we collect is necessary, that it also complies with all the different regulations that we need to comply with, like what Susan was saying. So really looking at collecting information on current enrollments, financial repayment and employment obligation tracking, and not necessarily even doing the kind of specifics around the numbers for financial repayment, because I think that's a conversation we need to have a little bit more fully, but just so that we can track those things overall, and really looking at increased need for accountability and cost-benefit analysis. I've talked a bit recently about the Center for States findings, and their full report should be coming out today. One thing that we heard loud and clear is that we're doing a great job meeting our program goals, but the question hasn't really been asked as far as the cost benefit, because it's a very expensive program to administer. So the more that we have access to this data to be able to aggregate it and make a case for ourselves about why we are cost effective in light of the fact that we are kind of expensive, having more data could only kind of help provide us with more support. The other thing, we've talked about having 3 different databases. If you have the 3 different programs, BASW, MSW, and Pathway, that makes tracking a little bit harder sometimes. So we're really looking at one unified database across programs, particularly within IV E, but we're also doing a lot of work to make sure that we're aligned with the MHSA stipend program, and also with an eye towards the future to hopefully, maybe, possibly align it with the RTA data and Common Core 3.0 or Common Core curriculum, going through Common Core training and things like that. So again, we can do these comparative analyses of IV E versus non-IV E once they get into the field. So we're taking all of this into account as we develop a new program. It's very ambitious, and it's a lot of kind of thinking, and there's a lot of moving pieces that may not all come together all at once, but we're hopeful that, you know, in the long run, it's going to be really beneficial. Feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything else in. Some questions that we still have to answer are, who's going to be entering the information? One of the things that is pretty clear is that when you have multiple hands touching the data, there's a lot more room for data entry error. And so we're kind of looking at ways to have students enter their information directly through web forms or something like that. Not that they can necessarily go into the database themselves, but that your admins won't have to sit there literally like transcribing an application. We're also looking at ease of running on-the-spot reports from the system itself. So a lot of you said in your survey feedback that you're taking the information, but you have all of these other shadow documents or sheets that you actually use to manipulate the data. We're really looking at ways for you to just go into the system and pull out the information that you need directly, and also have it look really pretty. One of the other plugins that Liz is looking into is what is it called? The data visualization? Tableau, yes. So we're looking into that as well. Again, we really want to reduce the burden. Everybody loves doing data entry, right? Not really. It's really boring. So, and hopefully with that reduced data entry for admin staff, hopefully that'll increase their time to do other supportive work for the program. We also were really looking into using CSIS to track program applicants in some way, whether that's having a part of some sort of universal application online or something like that. So, and again, it would give us another data with which to work, to who's applying to the program, who's being selected, sort of, and if there's regional differences, things like that. And again, that we want it to be a web interface. Well, it's going to be a web interface, so it's not just going to be in a file maker system on a cloud server, whatever you want to call it, at Berkeley. So here's our revision timeline. We're starting with rolling it out for the MHSA stipend program first, because it's kind of a much more straightforward program. It's 1 year, there's fewer students, they don't have MSW, BSW, whatever. So we're developing it and piloting it and like kind of working out some of the bugs through that. And then in spring of next year, we're going to be continuing development of the IV E side of it. You know, again, it's a little bit more complicated bringing together 3 programs. But as we develop that, we're also going to look at a timeline for rolling out implementation, because there's obviously different phases of data entry. There's the new student enrollments, there's graduate tracking, and then if we do some kind of applicant tracking or information gathering. So there's going to be some kind of rollout, so you guys don't have to do everything all at once. And we're also going to be looking at rolling the old data over into the new system and kind of figuring that out. So Susan and Aston are melding brains, and that's what's happening over at Cal Central with the doing something.
You're both in a big project, so bear with us here. We try to do the best we can to transfer all this data, starting from 1993.
Yeah.
I think we're going to enter the modern age of web platforms, and it's going to be a lot more like what people are used to doing online now. They didn't have emails back then.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing that we're hoping to streamline the process for is the petition and appeals process. So you can just do it online, web forms online, and then it would just trigger an alert to Donna or me or your PI or your PC, and you don't have to wait 60 days. And that when you enter it, we're kind of ironing out the details, but basically that you have a dashboard where you could see the pending cases and where it's at and the status of things. So we really want it to be a more streamlined, smooth process that won't take as long, and that doesn't require you to like send things certified mail or fax things over or whatever. Carrier pigeon.
Well, actually, Susan mentioned there are things that we can't collect and put on people's database, but we still use, like if we're referring to credit collections, types of folks like a social security number, driver license, whatever.
We can't store any of that information.
I'm not storing it, I'm just saying if I find it, can I send it to the collection people?
Find it where? On our CSIS?
Anywhere. No, it's not on CSIS.
Right.
I find it in other places.
Oh.
Or if I can just put it into a letter when I'm referring to anything.
We actually have
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your school has that information.
Yeah.
We don't want that information, but your schools do. Yeah.
So as long as we don't give it to you.
Right. Don't give it to us. Yeah. Don't store anything like that.
Yeah. On your computer, your personal stuff, because yes, you do need it for.
It's interactive information.
Right. Exactly.
Right. If you use the tax intercept, for instance, when people disappear, you need a social security number for that.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? I think Sandy is up next.